Hi everyone. My name is Gary Paramanathan. I'm the outreach manager at AFTRS, a co-presenting partner of Antenna Selects and the screening of Welcome to Chechnya. On behalf of AFTRS, Antenna Documentary Film Festival and Queer Screen Film Festival, it's an honor to welcome the extraordinary journalist and Academy Award-winning nominated director, David France, for a Q&A. How are you, David?
I'm great, Gary. Thanks for having me.
No worries. First of all, congratulations on such a powerful film. I had the privilege of watching it in the lead up to this Q&A, and it's a magnificent piece of screen work. So thank you for making it.
Thank you.
Your previous films have often been about historical subject matters. How did you come to this story? Because there was a matter of urgency and it was happening in the here and now.
Well, I had just finished my previous film, The Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson, when I read the news about what was happening in Chechnya in the south of Russia. Initially, I thought that the reason it fell from headlines was that it, having been exposed, got taken care of. And it wasn't until a few weeks later that I read a piece that was that revealed for the first time that this was an orchestrated, government-controlled, top-down program to round up and eliminate, like virtually, literally eliminate the LGBTQ community in Chechnya. And because nobody was responding to it, ordinary queer activists on the ground in Russia had taken upon themselves to do this extraordinary work of, rescuing people, really hand-to-hand rescue campaigns, and to hide them and to find ways to bring them to more relative freedom and safety elsewhere. And I thought I needed to go and help them tell the world about what was going on there and what it took to respond to it.
And can you provide some context about Chechnya and its relationship to Russia? I mean, you can see that in the film, but it'll be good to hear again from you.
Well, Chechnya is a republic of Russia, of the Russian Federation. It's in the North Caucasus, the southernmost regions in Russia. It's a part of the country that's very isolated. It's very kind of hermetically divided off from the rest of the country. It's geographically isolated behind the Caucasus Mountains, and it's politically and culturally isolated as well. It's a Muslim part of Russia. Russia is a largely Christian country, and it's had a long history of being isolated. It has its own language, although there are just 1.4 million Chechens who live there. And in the 90s, it was the home of a secessionist movement, an independence movement that was brutally put down by Russia in two wars that claimed just a terrible toll in human lives. And ultimately, some of the rebel leaders changed sides and joined Putin, and Putin rewarded them. Those are the people who are still in power. They are kind of, tools of the Putin regime, and they're rewarded with great lenience in the kinds of crimes that they're able to commit against their own people, and also with a great amount of money. So there's a lot of money that flows into the republic from Russia itself, and in return, the republic, the leadership in the republic, which is run by Ramzan Kadyrov and his family, have delivered a peaceful, or at least non-rebelling republic. And so when you travel there, and few people do, you have a sense that there's a very strong fist at the head of the country, that the people that eyes are all over the place, that you're being watched, that you feel the hot breath of this totalitarian governorship in the area, and you get a sense of fear. It's that isolated that you feel that just being there as an outsider is a provocation.
Yeah, and there very much seems to be a codependency between Putin and Ramzan, almost like, big Putin, small Putin kind of.
Yeah. And Kadyrov, Ramzan Kadyrov, carries out crimes on Putin's behalf. You know, a lot of the assassinations that we read about over the last 2 or 3 years that have taken place in Europe and elsewhere are carried out by Putin's people, by Putin's agents. Sometimes the people are targeted because they are enemies of the Kadyrov regime inside Chechnya, but often because they are enemies of Putin and the Kremlin, and they're carried out with impunity, with, you know, a strange sense of impunity that allows, for example, you know, daylight assassinations in Berlin that has happened last year, and that seems to be one of the favors that Putin gets in return for the support of this family and this dynasty.
Another quick question before we move on to the film. Is there sort of a next wave of resistance to, you know, sort of Chechnya being part of Russia, or that's just being completely quashed, you think?
That is, you know, there are people still who feel the urgent call to independence, but mostly they live outside of Russia and elsewhere in the world. So they've become part of a vast diaspora of people who fled the wars in the 90s and early 2000s.
Now, talking about Russia being, I guess, an unsafe place and a place that operates with impunity, how did you go about filming in Russia? Like, were you there all the time? Did you work with a number of like local filmmakers and cameramen?
I worked with one local a camera operator and producer, Askold Kurov, who's a well-known resistance filmmaker in Russia, and I reached out to him when I learned what was going on there and realized that I wanted to go over and meet the people who are running this underground railroad, really a network of safe houses and you know, a rotating list of apartments in various cities throughout the country where people were hid for periods of time, moved from one to the other as they're waiting some sort of invitation from a country in the West to apply for a humanitarian visa to get out. So Askold went into the Safe House Network before I did, and called me the next day and said, "You've got to come right away. This story is happening." It couldn't have a feeling of greater urgency. So I was there within the week, I think, on the assumption that I'd spend a couple of days and determine how to approach the story, how to approach this journalism, this research, this gathering of video evidence of what they were doing. And he was right. There was just way too much happening for me to turn back. So I stayed for over a month on that first trip, and then traveled in and out of Russia under various kind of cover stories. None of them included me being a journalist or a documentary filmmaker. And I snuck as quietly as possible into this underground network on this repeated basis. And that was our first objective, was to not give anything away, right? To not let any of our activity in support of their work do anything that would make their work more difficult or endanger lives even more than they were already endangered. So we didn't use a traditional documentary film crew. There were no sound engineers. There were no professional cameras. There were no, you know, big cases of tripods and the like. This was all shot guerrilla style and in this clandestine manner, on mostly on a Handycam, you know, kind of a tourist camera, and the rest of the film was shot on GoPros and cell phones and hidden cameras.
Did you ever come close to any point where you thought you were going to get noticed by the authorities?
There's a scene in the film where they are staging a rescue, or extraction as they call it, of a young woman in Chechnya, in Grozny, the capital of the republic. And in shooting that, I realized that we were taking on a very big challenge, not just as the shooting crew, it was me and one other, but also the activists themselves. This was the daughter of a high-placed government official. She was very young. She was in grave danger. And we realized that if we made even one false move, that authorities would be alerted instantly, and we would not be able to get out of the region. He has a kind of a private army, a security force that operates like an army inside Chechnya. And their reach is limited by the boundaries of the republic, although it's not a place with borders like a traditional country to country border. There are checkpoints that are kind of arbitrarily set up on the roads in and out. So on that trip, I was very concerned especially for the young woman who was making this effort bravely to make an escape. And it was important to the activists that, of course, that we not get in the way, but it was also important to them that we create a video record of what was happening there in case there was any discovery or the mission was thwarted in some way, so that that there could be no disinformation about how it had been conceived and how it had been carried out. So we were there and really with two hats, as it were, one as a documentary film crew, and the other as this evidence against any sort of charge in case we were captured along the way.
And now you continue to protect the subjects of your documentary through, I guess, the deep fake technology, which hides their identities. What was the process of that, both technology-wise, but also ensuring them that they will be protected? Because it's sort of, these kind of technology is very new. So I imagine there was a bit of suspicion and concern amongst them as well.
Well, I didn't promise this technology because it literally didn't exist until we started, until we devised it for this film. It's not deep fake, as it were. It's using a similar artificial intelligence and machine learning, which I'll describe in a minute, but it had not been done before. And what I promised people when I asked them, could I shoot them and tell their stories, was that I would disguise them, and that I would disguise them so that, I kept calling it to the highest degree, the highest, standard, which is that even their own mothers won't recognize them. And they went, oh, well, okay, which is a big leap. But I also promised that I would return to them with my approach, get their approval, and then show them the footage that I shot of them that I intended to use in the film to make sure that I had really met that highest standard. And my first proposal to them was that I would make them into cartoons, kind of like Jessica Rabbit, how the cartoon exists among the non-cartooned universe. And I knew that was possible to do. So that's when I returned to New York. That's what I set out to do. And it was possible, but it didn't do what it needed to do. It really made them look more like themselves. It was a process of rotoscoping, which is to carve them out of their frame and then to put them through a filter. And the filter would, make, change their skin tone to cartooning kind of skin tone. It would get rid of, certain dimensionality to their presence, but it made them look like caricatures of themselves. Like if I were to render you as a cartoon in this way, you would look, just as adorable and just as you, but maybe less human. And I think that's all it was really accomplishing. So we started then on a lengthy R&D process to try and find an approach that would do it. And it wasn't until we discovered this use of AI, which we call face doubling, that we realized that it would be possible for us to finish this film and to take it out to the world.
Wow. Do you know if there's been any screenings of the films in Russia? I think Antenna Film Festival was saying it's actually been pirated a lot, but has there been any public screenings? Or?
There have not yet been public screenings, but it not only pirated a lot, it went to number 6 on the charts in bootleg form, in pirated form, in YouTube channels and on VK, which is the local Facebook. And HBO, my US distributor, and BBC, my UK distributor, issued takedown notices because it was not geo-blocked and it was infringing on their rights. But it showed that there's a huge audience in Russia that really wants the story. Um, and and I wasn't disappointed about the pirating, but now because of the pirating was so successful, we are about to announce a Russian distribution deal that will bring the film out in a formal way in Russia, in a way that can't be shut down by a well-known distributor, and it'll be free in Russia. So I'm really grateful to the pirators who showed the hunger for this story, and I think that all of Russia is going to be able to benefit from it now. I think what drove it to number 6 was people who were really interested in this subject, LGBTQ people or their allies. And I think with this distribution deal, which I can't announce formally yet, it will put the film before all the eyes in Russia, and allow it to reach people who might never have thought about the tragedies and the personal cost of these tragedies, these atrocities, and might join their voices to a campaign to bring them to an end finally, and to bring justice to the so many people who have been just disappeared there, or who have escaped and have been able to, thanks to this technology, for the first time narrate their own stories of torture and terror and near death.
And speaking about the subjects, is David still working with to move refugees out of the country?
He is, yeah. And he's an incredible figure, isn't he? I mean,
yeah, amazing.
Just and what certainly he's just a great human being, and you really get that sense from watching him work. But he also came to this with absolutely no experience in this kind of life in the shadows that he has now taken on for himself, doing these incredible, extraordinarily dangerous campaigns and actions and operations to get people out, and to take for a man with his background to take on the responsibility of so many individual human lives, and to have rescued and saved so many people is really remarkable.
And to do it with such calmness and groundedness, like I don't think I ever saw him at any point, lose it in the film. So
no, and I spent a year and a half with him, and I never saw him lose it either. And one evening we were going. I don't remember exactly what our mission was for the night, but he said, I want to stop in the mosque and pray. So we went into the mosque, and I brought my hidden camera in, and I watched him pray. And as we left there, I said, I didn't know you're Muslim. And he said, I'm not, I'm Jewish. But before an operation takes me to Chechnya, I like to spend some time inside the mosque. It balances my mind and reminds me of the culture that I'm going into, and that it's a culture of peace, and that it has its own humanity, but the politics is what he's responding to.
Exactly. What's happening with Maxim? What's the situation with him?
He and his boyfriend, now fiance, are living in Europe. They are still also living in the shadows. They move frequently. They're still pursuing their case against Russia, the only case brought in the Russian courts. It's been moved out of the Russian courts, unfortunately, because they exhausted all domestic remedies with no traction whatsoever. So they've moved into the European courts, where they have great support from European Parliament and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the OSCE, and it is progressing there, and they do expect, I think most observers expect, that the case will come to some positive outcome for them. But as long as they're doing that, they remain at risk, and their family remains at risk. And so they are keeping not just a low profile, but they're keeping moving to make sure that they're not staying in one place too long. And they're still under the watchful eye of the incredible David. So I'm feeling confident that that they will make it. But unfortunately, this is several years now for them, and they're relatively young family, and to be taken out of the larger world as they have been, just to pursue, justice, has been frustrating to them, and has cost them a lot in terms of, first of all, their careers, but secondly, their own kind of connection to the world. They're in hiding, and that's no way to live.
Exactly. As a last question, the film raises awareness about what's going on, and I think we as audience, especially as a queer person, there's this sense of urgency and this desire, this need to do something. What can we do, I guess, as audiences in terms of supporting David and Maxim and the queer people of Chechnya?
Well, I will tell you what they've told me, which is the first thing they want the world to know is that this is happening. And Russia has done everything in its power to deny that it's happening, to suppress evidence that it has happened. And it has happened not to just, Maxim and the small handful of people whose stories I've captured in the film, but to dozens and hundreds and perhaps thousands of queer Chechens who have been dislodged in the most brutal and violent way. What Russia says is there is no evidence, and there are no witnesses. And so what Maxim asks everybody to be is a witness with him, and to embrace the story, let the world know what happened. And he asked for the hashtag I am a witness to be carried out by the film and with the film, and to use that as a way to advance his cause for justice. The second thing is to talk to our governments about responding, have our governments responded in a political realm in a forceful way that befits such a horror as is going on there. And secondly, are our governments doing what they can to open up channels for refugees coming from Chechnya and elsewhere, but Chechnya especially, LGBTQ refugees who are being hunted across the globe. And what they're asking for, and what many countries have stood up, at least for a period of time, to do, is to offer these humanitarian visas, which is a kind of a backdoor asylum to people so that they can come through this hidden pipeline right into the countries that they hope to settle in. They're looking for invitations for people to begin to live a better life. And the people that David works with in Russia at the Russian LGBT Network, and the other organization, the Moscow Community Center for LGBTI Initiatives, they're currently holding people that they can't get visas for. There are people who are, having to live inside, apartments where they can't open the curtains and they can't leave, and they've been there for months, and they're living in really dramatic and untenable ways. They need our help to talk to our governments and say, help get these people out of there. Begin a conversation with the network, and see what we can do to open up these visas, because that's really essential. Finally, you can support their work with money. And so we've opened a button on our website, welcometochechnya.com, that allows you to donate to both organizations doing this work, as well as to Maxim and his case as he pursues justice there. So, and money is really as essential as you can imagine it is, especially at this time, especially coming through the lockdowns that they've experienced there in Russia, and so many of us around the world have experienced. They need help.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for your time, David.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks for telling the world about this. Thanks for being a witness.
Thank you. See you.